Wow. Let's see. Hi, are you one of our presenters?
Okay, now you can see us.
You perfect. I wasn't sure since there wasn't a name attached.
Great, love it. Let's see. Can I change?
You're a little far.
Yeah. Can you?
Yeah.
Wait, how do you do that? Shit, where is it? Camera control. Crushing it.
While you do that, I'm just gonna Colleen.
Sure, do whatever you gotta do. Boom. Done. No.
Hi, Colleen, welcome. I believe you're one of our presenters as well, or?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Are you one of our presenters as well?
Just use like my camera so that you don't have to be on display.
Did you ask me a question?
Yes. Are you one of our presenters as well?
I am a speaker.
Yes.
Is that a presenter? Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, my name's Colleen.
Yes.
Alejandra, I'm gonna also join in from my computer right now,
Okay,
so that way it can just have a camera that's just pointed directly at me.
Okay, great.
But I'm gonna use the like sound system in here.
Okay.
I got these things on because I feel like this is foolproof.
Yeah. The sound is very clear.
Good,
Okay.
because my computer's shaky.
And my computer's waiting in the waiting room right now. Perfect. Okay, sweet.
Okay, perfect.
You
And now we'll be right back.
Okay.
I'm just gonna go get some more water before we start.
You don't want to join audio?
Are you Alice?
I'm not Alice. My name is Alejandra. I'm one of the program coordinators at the Idea Center, but Alice is actually the associate director at CAP. And so she was the one that assisted me in getting this workshop together.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And then hi, Kimberly. My name's Alejandra.
Hey, Alejandra, nice to meet you. I actually go by Kim, so I'm gonna go ahead and change.
Okay, perfect.
I almost had my baseball cap on.
Yeah, I'm just, it just makes it easier. Gotta represent the mouse,
I like it. Let me see. Are you working for Disney?
No.
Oh.
No.
Okay. I'm like, are you hiring? I would love to work for Disney. Oh my gosh. Be a great company to work for.
Hi, Steve. I remember you from last year's workshop.
Yeah, Alejandra, how are you?
Good. Thank you for being here today.
Of course.
So I know the three of you are our presenters for today's workshop, so welcome. I'm just going to repeat myself again. I know it's been almost a year now since I last saw Steve at the same workshop. So each year I ask Alice to assist in getting panelists for this workshop because I feel like, again, it's always new students who tune in to hear the great advice y'all as recruiters give them in terms of rocking their first summer internship. This time around, students are, for example, I know there's a student intern in our office who had a virtual internship last summer and is now gonna be going to Minnesota or Tennessee for an in-person internship this summer. So then it's that experience of both in-person and then virtual. What's the difference? What can they do differently this summer? So I definitely as you're answering the questions I sent you, just being mindful that some students have both or experiencing either one for this summer or had a different experience last summer because of the type of year it was. So yeah, in terms of the audience, they would be undergraduate engineering students that are present today. It is a Zoom meeting, so I will be letting students know they can raise their hand to unmute themselves to ask you all questions, or just drop in the chat. I've noticed that students aren't always super active over actual audio on a Zoom meeting, but they'll definitely ask questions in the chat. And that is what we have for today. And if at any point the workshop wraps up a little bit earlier, then I can just let students know to ask any remaining questions, and then we can always wrap up earlier than we anticipated. And the workshop is being recorded. So
Thank you.
So we'll be posted on our YouTube channel in the next week. So I think for the order of questions, so I know I have introductions, what is the company culture like? From the list of questions I sent you all, for the order, I'm just gonna put in terms of my screen. So Colleen, and am I saying your name right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Colleen, Steve, and then Kim.
Cool. You could also, it also might be kind of worthwhile too to switch up the the order in which we give our answer. So that way, I don't always have to answer last, Colleen's always have to go first,
That's fair. Yeah. So it doesn't feel like, oh, I know who's asking next.
Yeah.
I think if anything, since it's just the three of you, if there's just a pause before the next person answers, I think it's a lot easier than when there's 5 panelists. It's easy to talk over each other, but feel free to answer in that pause, or I feel like y'all will get the natural flow.
Also, if I'm going, I also I won't feel compelled to speak for every single question if Steve and Colleen end up
Okay.
giving answers that cover what I would have said anyways.
Okay, sounds great. And then I know we already have 7 students in the waiting room, so that's really good. Okay. Let me just go ahead and wait another minute, and then I'll go ahead and admit the students.
Sounds great.
Do you all have any questions for me?
So this question on what is the company culture like, are you asking us to help kids understand how they should explore that themselves, or do you want to know about our company culture?
Your company culture, or if you feel like that's not a very good question to ask, do you
Well,
all
just
feel
kind of feels
that's
like it's
relevant for them?
I mean, I don't know if there's going to be kids. It just kind of feels like that question might better serve them if it's here, here are some ways where you can figure out the company culture for your internship, right? Because I'm assuming that
that's better. I see what you're saying. Okay. So then I'll just ask a question as what is your advice for students wanting to learn what company culture is like at their company? Okay, I'll word it more like that then.
Sounds good.
So I think they get asked they ask that question in interviews, but don't really know what that means all the time until they're there. So I think however you feel like it makes the most sense to answer that, I think would be good. Ooh, 11 students. I'm very excited. Okay, I'll go ahead and admit all our students. Hi, everyone. Welcome. We'll go ahead and get started shortly. Okay. Welcome, everyone. My name is Alejandra Ruiz. Our pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am one of the program coordinators here at the Idea Engineering Student Center. Welcome to today's workshop. We have a great one planned for you all. We have invited, in collaboration with the Corporate Affiliates Program, recruiters who will be presenting you all great information, sharing really valuable information for you all on how to rock your summer internship. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and have our panelists introduce themselves.
I guess I'm taking the lead here. My name is Colleen Trelongo, and I have been in talent and HR for 20 years. I'm a credentialed HR professional, and just for grins, I have an MBA. The position that I'm in is I'm head of talent for Generate, which is an engineering services company. And I help coordinate all of the hiring across many engineering disciplines and other non-functional areas as well. So I'm very happy to be here today.
Hey everybody, I'm Steve Marks. I'm a university recruiter at Indeed. I've been at Indeed for about 3 years, and I recruit primarily for software engineering, new grads and interns, and also help to run the day-to-day program. And I've been in university recruiting in general for about 6 or 7 years now. And so I'm excited to chat with you all today. Thank you for having me.
Hey y'all, my name is Kim Nguyen. I'm from a company called F5. We're headquartered in Seattle, Washington. We also hire primarily software engineers, but also hire product managers and just kind of other roles across the org as well. Just a little about me, I actually have degrees in computer science and electrical engineering and spent half of my career building products at Microsoft. And then while I was there, transitioned into university recruiting because it just seemed like a job that just was really fun. And I've kind of been hooked on it ever since. I've spent some time also working at my own alma mater, University of Washington, as a career counselor. And I currently teach a lecture on how to land software engineering jobs for that school, in addition to working as a university recruiter here at F5. So I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you all for your introductions. So throughout this presentation, feel free to either raise your hand and I can call on you to unmute yourself and ask your question, or drop questions in the chat. So remember, this is about having your questions answered. Y'all are the ones having your first in-person internships or virtual internships this summer. So feel free to ask our recruiters that are here to give you all advice. So for our first question here is, in terms of company culture, how do you all recommend students finding how to figure that out this summer for them?
Well, I would say pay attention to what's happening with people, what's happening in the organization, ask questions and be curious about why people do things the way they do. By observation, you can pick up an awful
It looks like she froze. So if one of our other panelists can share while she joins us again.
Yes. So I would say, when I talk to students about identifying culture, I think an important thing that oftentimes we might forget to do is think about what it is that you actually value or want out of the experience. And so I think kind of identifying, what are you looking for out of an internship? Are you looking for a conversion, into full-time work? Are you looking to get an experience that you didn't get last time? Are you looking to know more about, a company culture in general? I think once you kind of understand what you're looking for there, it's easier for you to then go into these interview situations or while you're in your internship and ask questions about those specific things. If you're someone who really values work-life balance, then it's a good thing to pay attention to how, the folks around you are working and what their schedules are like. Or if you're really looking for a conversion at the time of interview, that's a totally appropriate question to ask, how often interns are converted. And so I think in terms of keeping an eye out for just a general company culture, you can do that through how a company talks about themselves or something like that. But also, I think it's important to know what you want or what the kind of culture you're looking for is so that you know what kind of questions to ask.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of Steve, like I think kind of hitting that note on like, there are ways that companies talk about themselves. And I think that's something that's important to pay attention to, right? But like also understanding it's like, yeah, like that's how a company is trying to market themselves to you. Like y'all are like very coveted, especially in the tech industry as far as like future candidates, right? And so, you are going to hear a lot of messaging around how companies are selling themselves to you. And I think the phenomenal thing about an internship is you get to go and actually like find that shit out for yourself this summer, right? Like really like lean in to every single event that you can. And obviously you're going to have to balance that between like actually getting your work done, like getting that return offer like Steve is talking about. But also like, finding that time to really try to get to know your company, networking, getting to know the folks that are like working there. Like those people are going to really be able to inform you what the company culture is actually like. And so I would just say like, I know it's hard depending on, if you have a virtual internship this summer, if it's in person, it might be a little bit easier, although it kind of depends on like whether or not folks in your office have actually returned to work yet. But just every opportunity you can to engage with your company, like that is how you're going to be able to really dig into what that company culture is and answer that question for yourself.
Then Colleen, I know we lost you there for a minute.
I'm really sorry about that. I want to know, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so headset gone. Colleen's here. Sorry about that.
For the next questions I have here is, what kind of projects do interns work on? What can they expect?
Well, I'll take the lead on that. The client that I work at currently is called Generate, and it's an engineering services company that's very different than a product company. Our engineers are focused on working collaboratively and under the supervision of their mentors to help bring engineering designs to life for our customers. So it's unique in that our interns get to work and actually be exposed to customers on site and put together and be a part of engineering design teams in the area of life sciences, medical devices, and instrumentation. So pretty highly technical and very collaborative and quite different in terms of what we are and what we do as a company, because we don't have a product. Our product is our people and our technical expertise. So those are the kinds of projects that our interns work on. We do have a unique program going on with UCSD this summer, and that's through our Carlsbad office. And I just think this is the greatest idea ever. When we are out trying to land new customers, we oftentimes have to show them or provide information to them in regards to what we do and how we do it. And so we've created a design project this summer for 3 interns through UCSD. And those interns are actually getting to create and document the design process that we go through and exactly how we do it, and create an actual unit that we get to show in the sales pitch to our customers. So that's really cool and unique, and that's something new that our interns are getting to do this year in that particular location. So that's that. Yes.
Awesome. I was going to just kind of go off that. I was just gonna, sorry, Colleen, were you finished?
No, that's a good kind of like broad overview of what we've got going on.
Cool. I was just going to answer, I was going to take like a more general take on this question. Like, I think, because y'all actually,
I think you may have muted yourself. Accident.
Dang it. So hard, you guys. I've tried so hard to not be that guy that has to be like, you're on mute. Sorry. What I was going to say is it might be kind of helpful before I answer that question. Can everyone in the chat here, if you're going to be interning this summer, put in the company that you're interning at and the position that you're interning at or whatever. But I was just gonna answer this generally. I think a lot of companies kind of have like two different approaches. Well, whatever, maybe not two, maybe it's not just two. But from what I've seen, I typically have seen two different approaches. One is usually, I think the thing I see most often is teams will essentially just kind of bring you on as if you're kind of just like a new member of the team who's going to be there for a short period of time. And you will just end up working on whatever the team is working on. That's kind of like that's kind of one thing, like one way that I've seen people set up their projects. Another way that I've seen is your team will actually create an individual project for you, like you in mind. You might be directly contributing to the code base. Sorry, if you're like a software engineer, or maybe you are doing something kind of more research oriented that's connected to the team, but maybe is like a little bit separate. Those are typically the two different like categories of projects that I've seen. Sometimes teams have that shit figured out before you come, and sometimes teams do that on the fly. I guess I would say when it comes to like, preparing and thinking about projects or thinking about what they're looking like, I think just to kind of go off of a piece of advice like that I would want to give to interns everywhere is just like remain flexible, because I think that a lot of times, like even when you're in the interview process, or even when you're kind of following up with like maybe your assigned team before you get there, they might be like describing what you're going to be working on. And then when you actually get there, things might change, right? Like, especially if you're at a technology company, like things can be really fast paced. And so I just, in general, like, I think, staying flexible can be really helpful. And like, of course, like if you're going as a software engineering intern, expecting that you are going to be doing some kind of coding, or if you're going to be going as a product management, intern, you're going to be doing something in that sphere. But that's kind of what I've seen. It's either you're like on a project that's for you that they have prepared ahead of time, or you're kind of just like attached to the team and you're kind of like doing what other like entry-level folks are doing, and you're just there for a shorter amount of time. Steve, did you have anything else?
No, I think I think you hit the nail on the head. At Indeed specifically, we do the project model. We have engineers that pitch projects that are scoped and scaled for an intern for 12 weeks that, kind of are part of the larger team effort. And so, yes, those are really the two verticals that I too have seen internships fall under. And again, when it comes to culture and things like that, both of those experiences kind of offer a potentially different viewpoint. And so I think if there's one of those types of working environment as an intern that you prefer, I think that's a great question to ask recruiters.
Then for the next question is, what are some of the biggest challenges interns experience in person, and then what about virtually?
Okay, Kim, I'm lobbing the ball to you.
Okay, Colleen, you have been taking the lead on that, on all these questions, so appreciate that. I think like, as far as like, I know like this question is like specifically like you're kind of looking for us to answer this for in person versus virtually, but like as somebody who has like supported programs virtually now for like, I guess we're on our third summer, and like I've also done like 4 summers of like doing this like shit in person as well. Honestly, it's kind of, obviously there's challenges with each one, but I would say for me, like what I see for just young people, interns specifically, is advocating for yourself. I think like learning how, like, I feel like for a lot of folks, I know that this might be your very first time working like a corporate America type job. And I think the way in which you show up here versus how you show up academically, like I think obviously there are a lot of things that you like learn in school that you are going to apply, like maybe technically here on the job. But I think one of the biggest growing pains is learning to advocate for yourself, like knowing how to receive feedback, give feedback, how to take action on feedback, like expressing to your mentor and managers like what you need to be successful. Like I think, so often you don't really have someone ask that question of you directly, right? Like, what does support look like, for you? What do you need from us? And I think in the workplace, just being able to learn how to ask for those things that you need in a way that where people are going to be able to help you advocating for yourself, that's probably just in general one of the biggest challenges. And I think doing it virtually too, like I guess adds on this layer, because you're not just kind of, a lot of times, being able to advocate yourself is, building those relationships, building trust with those other people that can be there to support you. And that can be really hard in a virtual environment. So you're really going to need to go out of your way to make sure that you're able to build that trust so you can have people, so that not only can you can advocate for yourself, but have a good support system to advocate for you as well.
I would say, just to kind of compliment what Kim is saying quickly, I think that idea of the biggest difference for me between the virtual and the in-person is kind of how you advocate for yourself. In the virtual environment, yes, it's definitely going to be a situation where you're probably going to be physically alone for a lot of your internship experience. And so you're going to need to quickly learn, how to best get in touch with people. Is that through Slack? Is that through email to people on your team like Zoom? And that's going to be a tough thing to navigate because it's something that we're all still navigating, as we get used to a more remote environment. In person, I think the only kind of real curveball that you might experience is that people that have been working at a company for many years have, a routine. There's a company culture that's ingrained. And so I think the difficulty there is almost the opposite, where instead of really needing to figure out how you need to advocate for yourself, you're going to need to figure out, at first what the general flow of the day looks like, what people's general patterns and, how they work, how does that all work with how you like to work. And then once you figure that out, it'll be easier for yourself to advocate, with the people that are immediately around you, what you need support wise, what you need help wise. And so I think that's kind of the biggest thing is online. It's going to be a lot of you figuring those things out kind of alone at first. And in an in-person experience, it's going to be you alongside a lot of people who have already figured that stuff out and kind of figuring out how to get in line with them and kind of follow what their routine is.
I think the word advocacy covers an awful lot, just in terms of going in, having a clear understanding of why you're there, what it is that you want to get out of the internship, whether it's virtual or in person, and putting in place the process and procedures and communication tools for you to be able to get what you need. And that has a lot to do with advocacy and communication. Communication could be in a lot of different forms that have been mentioned, but interestingly, at the company that I'm at now, we really didn't do a lot of virtual internships. It's a kind of a hands-on type of company. And so it made it real challenging for us in that first year of COVID. We had a big drop of people that didn't show up. So I also think, that, you need to be comfortable whether you're virtual or whether you're in person, and certainly in person is more important because you're around people. And, just being comfortable and being able to communicate clearly what it is you need is going to go an awful long way for you having a successful internship and for the company valuing the time and effort and energy you put into that as well.
I know for the next question, we do have a student who would like to ask a question. Jose, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Perfect. Thank you. Sorry, I was having trouble with that. But my question it's regarding like employee resource groups or like associates resource groups when it comes to like the company's efforts for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Do you think an internship is a good time to start getting involved with that, with those kind of groups? And if so, kind of how do we navigate that? Because it might be a little intimidating to kind of reach out to your manager and be like, hey, this is an identity that I have, and this is something that I really value and that I'm really passionate about, and I want to contribute this and give kind of like back. How do we navigate that?
Kim, did you want to share something? I think you're on mute. We can't hear you. Oh, we can't unmute. We'll try again.
I think it might be fixed. Kim, go ahead. I think we can unmute.
There it is. Yay.
Okay,
I've
it's
been
happening.
Unmuted.
Okay, great. Sorry, I'm using this conference room to like for my audio, which is what the
Oh,
F5 call
okay.
is. So like, yeah. No, I just said, Steve, I think it's your turn to answer first, is all I was
geez.
saying.
I apologize. Well, then in that case, I would say first and foremost, you should never feel uncomfortable asking those types of questions to a manager. If you do, I mean, it's natural to feel a little nervous when you start. Like that's what recruiters, that's what your university folks on campus are for, to ask questions that or help you ask those questions. But to say you definitely should feel comfortable asking about participating in inclusion and resource groups on, during your internship, whether it's virtual or in person. The one piece of advice that maybe is more helpful than just saying like, yeah, definitely, is to say a lot of these groups, or at least in my experience at Indeed, these groups will have regional, subgroups that, represent each individual, maybe city the company is in. And so I think first making sure you're getting hooked up with the group that actually is going to be engaging with you or in your location is going to be the most helpful. And then from there, I would say, a lot of times these groups are planning on a full year cycle. And so just be mindful that you're going to be someone who maybe only will be in the company for 12 weeks. And so I think starting by finding out what immediate events, things you can participate in, that's going to be your best avenue to at least start engaging with that group and not necessarily feel like you need to take on part of a 6-month responsibility when you're only going to be there for 3 months. And so, but yes, I would highly encourage you to ask those questions to your manager, reach out to those folks. I know at Indeed, like, we love when interns want to get involved in any way. And so you should be welcomed with open arms as far as I'm concerned.
A+. Also, most companies that are large enough to host multiple employee resource groups will have like their own internal websites where they have information about all those things. And I think honestly, like most, especially like I think I saw, Jose, that like you're going to be at Apple, but like a lot of these like large tech companies, they really, really kind of message this idea of like bringing your whole self to work and like bringing your whole authentic self to work. Like I think tech industry very specifically, really, that's kind of like actually really a shared value. Like most large tech companies will say like that is something that they want. And so, I think, and it's kind of scary, like kind of offering that vulnerability to like your manager, or especially, maybe it's not your manager, maybe like it's a mentor or buddy or like another person. Like if maybe that, you don't want to like do that from the jump, like that's totally understandable. But I think that you will be really surprised, like just at how much people like are going to be excited and honor that vulnerability, like when you offer that in the workplace. And like, honestly, if they don't, it's a red flag. But if you don't want to talk to somebody about it, typically like a lot of companies like in their internal, it's called intranet, typically like on their internal websites or internal SharePoints will have like lots of information about their employee interest groups or employee resource groups, pending on like how established that kind of thing is. But at a place like Apple, they're 11 out of 10, I bet $100 definitely have something like that ready for you to go.
So I'll speak to the smaller company. In regards to that situation, if there's not a lot of resources on the intranet, then reach out to your colleagues, reach out to your peers, and certainly reach out to the people that you work with and ask, what it is they do on the weekend, or where do they go to hang out. I mean, it's okay to come to work and be this, I call it the holistic you, right? Like, own that and be okay with it, and you'll get to know people in a different way other than just through work. You'll get to know them, and that'll create connections and dialogue, and good stuff will happen.
And then for the next question, I know, Kim, you kind of you definitely already touched on this. The question is, what advice do you have for students who had a summer internship last summer virtually and now have an in-person internship this summer? Like, what are some things they should unlearn? What are some things for them to think about? Any advice that you all have?
I think what I'm experiencing right now, or at least what I'm seeing like industry-wide, is folks that now who are transitioning from virtual internships to in-person internships. And like Colleen mentioned, she's like at a company, right, that's like more hands-on and like has been kind of in person this whole time. But if you are at a company that went remote like for the pandemic or the panini, and then like are now kind of like doing more in-person stuff. I think one thing to just keep in mind is like everyone's kind of going at their own pace. Like you might see like a lot of news around like, oh yeah, like Google's returning to work, Microsoft is coming back on campus. Like, and the reality is like, it's still, people are still figuring their shit out. And like, we've had vaccines for about a year. It feels like the world is more opening up, but I would say like, at least here in Seattle and like seeing kind of what's going on with friends that are at other companies, like it's still very much like these companies honestly are very flexible and like kind of respect their employees' autonomy. And like, so even if they're opening back up or having workspaces open back up, you might not see the level of in-person activity that you might be expecting unless you are at a company that's like mandating people to be back. Because like I said, I teach like at the University of Washington and also work a 9 to 5. And like, it's funny because like campuses, they are very just full, vibrant in person. Like there's a lot of activity, and I still don't see quite that level in my own workplace, even though like we work in a huge like 40 level downtown building, and the traffic of people, it's still quite low, I would say. So just kind of, set your expectations. Even if you're coming to an in-person, like it might not look like what you think it might look like. Again, especially kind of being back on campus for a whole year with your teammates. So that would be my nugget.
The only other thing I would add to that is, and I think this applies across the board at return internships, regardless of in-person or virtual, is if you're coming back to the same place, use the new summers to find something new to learn or something new to engage with. And so if that new thing is, what the company's like remotely, and now you get to find out what it's like to work in an office for that company, I think that in and of itself is a valuable lesson, especially in a world where in the software engineering field, you're probably going to have more flexibility going forward than you've ever had to choose to work remotely. So use this summer as an opportunity to see what you prefer to do.
Just to add to Kim's comments, I would say that we are transitioning. And here in Silicon Valley, it's really a mixed bag in terms of people going back. It's not full kind of force. People are figuring out, companies are figuring out between virtual, between in-person, and a lot of buildings are still empty here. So we're in this period of flux. It's the most interesting time. And so we're all navigating through it, everybody together. We're all trying to figure it out. And I think to just go in with an open mind and be open to what's happening and to seize whatever opportunities you can, gain along the way is a really good way to approach it at this point.
And what are some general tips do y'all have for students in their internship? And as a reminder for our audience, feel free to drop any questions you have in the chat.
Colleen, do you want to kick us off?
Me?
Yeah.
For Kim?
You take this one first.
Got the ball. Okay. Be curious. Ask questions. Network. Meet as many people as you can. Have dialogue with those people. Take the internship opportunity that you have and just milk it for everything that you can in terms of connections, in terms of learning, in terms of work, engagement. Show up with whether it's virtual or in person. Be ready to engage and just take as much as you can, offer as much as you can. It really is a pretty amazing opportunity to have an internship. Now having to look at resumes of a lot of young people who lost out for 2 years. You guys are all in STEM. There's a lot of people out there that just were not able to have those internships. So it really is a gift. And with that gift, take advantage of all that it has to offer. Those would be my kind of summary comments on this area. Any thoughts, Kim?
I have the potato now. I love it, Colleen, that energy, just like, take it, it's yours, do everything. But I guess two other notes. One is, if y'all, and honestly, I am assuming like most of you here getting the internship, if there's an opportunity to receive a return offer at the end of the internship, getting very clear at the beginning of your internship, what do you need to achieve in order to get that return offer, whether it's a return offer for full-time because you're graduating this upcoming year, or another internship because maybe you're a sophomore who's like getting their first internship. Get really crisp. Make sure in the beginning you have a good understanding of what it is they expect from you so that you can receive that return offer. And then second, do not forget, all y'all UCSD, we're on the quarter system here. Know that fall recruiting starts in August. Fall recruiting is going to start in the middle of your internship. And I know that going to a quarter school, because UW is also a quarter system as well, sometimes it can feel like you're so behind when you start school at the end of September and you realize, oh shit, like these companies are already like a month and a half into their recruiting season for the next year, right? So if you think that, trying to balance, right? Like putting in the work for your internship, getting the experiences out of that, but also I encourage you, think a little ahead. Those 12 weeks are going to go by really quickly. For those of you rising seniors who think that you might want to leverage the offer that you get from this summer to go and recruit for other companies that you might be interested in, those companies, most of these companies are going to start opening their positions in August. And like first round interviews are going to start like before your school starts, probably. So I just want to keep, just gonna throw that out there. I know school's not over yet, but it's kind of getting to that time to already start thinking about fall recruiting for 2022.
I think both those answers are awesome. And the only thing I will add is this is definitely going to be the easiest time in your careers to try things. It's much harder to get a full-time job in the area of software engineering and then, decide 6 months later you don't like doing that. That's a much more complicated process than having an opportunity to try something for 12 weeks. So if there's an area you might be interested in or something that you get an opportunity to try that's new, now is definitely the safest and easiest time for you to be able to try that without having to, upheave your entire professional career or change or pivot in big ways. So definitely lean into that, idea too of being okay with trying some things, even if they don't necessarily end up being your favorite. But yes, everything everyone else said is also spot on advice.
And what should students avoid doing?
Oh, I love this question. Well, always show up with your best foot forward, whether you're virtual on Zoom or whether you're in person. Definitely dress for success, right? Some people, some companies, can get pretty casual, but I always say, show up like you mean it, right? Leave a good impression, and no flip-flops. Or I had one candidate come in with flip-flops and surfer shorts and a t-shirt, and that didn't work out well. Stay off your cell phone. Stay off social media unless you're doing it for your job. Really focus on taking that opportunity and letting people know that you're there to help them get whatever it is they need and be successful at that. Be serious about why you're there, what you're doing, and how you're going to be able to contribute. And be excited. Really put it in your mind that this really is an amazing opportunity. And even if it isn't what you thought it might be, you still have to look at the positive and grab what you can out of that. There's always something that you can learn, whether it has to do with the technology, the people, the job, the culture, the clubs, whatever it is you're doing. Just you know, grab it for everything that you can. And I love Kim's comment about going in and having that clear conversation and being upfront, you know, but definitely put your best foot forward.
Yeah, I would say, you know, in a very simple way, just avoid kind of siloing yourself. Again, this is the opportunity for you to learn and to grow without the kind of stress that comes with a real full-time job. And so I should say a real career, you know, salary, full-time job after school. And so in that case, use this time to, you know, get involved with the IRGs, to meet different departments and different teams, to set up time to chat with managers that maybe if you're working full-time, you wouldn't have the time in your day to do. Use the time as effectively as you possibly can. And I know it sometimes can be easy to get stuck in kind of the, I want to get all of my, you know, my project work done as fast as humanly possible. But people around you should understand that you're also there to learn, to find out about the company. And so make sure you're making time to also attend things that are going on. You know, if you have tech talks or opportunities to network with other interns, don't skip those things to do your project work, you know, unless you're you know, there's specific scenarios, but to say in general, make sure you're not skipping out on things and, you know, wasting your time by not engaging with folks around you. I think that was kind of an answer, but Kim, anything you want to add?
I have to out myself right now and tell everyone that I'm wearing flip-flops. No, but you know, I would say I think the thing, probably like the number one thing I see interns not doing enough of is asking questions, y'all. Like I know, like, okay, like I know how hard it is. Like we don't really get like a lot of like time when you're a student to really like flex, like asking questions. I mean, there's always like that kid who sits at like the front of the lecture hall who's like gonna ask their question or whatever, right? But like we don't really get to like, we're kind of, as students, we're kind of just, we get a lot of, you know, information that's just like blasted towards us. We're just supposed to kind of absorb it. And like, yes, like you get to go to your TA and ask them questions, whatever, to like get your homework done or whatever. But I think coming into the work environment, it can feel really intimidating to ask questions, right? Like it can kind of feel like, oh, well, like if you're asking that question, like it's kind of a show that like maybe you don't know the answer. And like there's some vulnerability in that, you know, you're going to need to get over. But I cannot tell you, like, you know, we do midpoint reviews here at F5 and we did them as well at Microsoft. And like, seriously, 9 times out of 10, the feedback that I would see interns get is you need to ask more questions. You're not asking enough questions. And it was more from like, it wasn't from like a boastful know-it-all, like you need to ask more questions. It was more from like a, hey, I can tell you're intimidated and like, I need you to get over that. And like, you got to ask more questions because, you know, like, help me help unblock you. Right. And I just know just how, like, you know, and I'll say that, and like every single time I come to a new job, it's always a little, you know, you're like, I don't know these people don't know me. And now I have to like, again, be that V word, be vulnerable and like admit that I don't know shit. It's like, yeah. And of course, just so you know, like no one expects you, no one, you are interns. You use that freaking intern card. Like people should treat you like royalty at your company, like, because you're an intern, they know they're excited for you to be there. They want you to be there. And, you know, hopefully you're at a company that's like going to be really friendly, like towards like the new person, the new intern. And like, so, you know, don't be afraid to ask questions. Like that's, you know, I'm not going to tell you how to feel, but I want to acknowledge that you're going to feel afraid to ask questions. I'm going to just tell you, like, you need to get over it. That'd be my thing to avoid.
And then I do have a question from a student who directly messaged it to me. This student has struggled to find an internship. So what suggestions do you all have? They've been trying to find a computer science, data science internship, but have struggled with no luck. What advice do you have for students wanting internships?
Okay, Steve.
All right. Yeah, I mean, to be quite honest with you, that's a tough one because, you know, each person is different. You know, the reasons people aren't selected for internships are many number of things. And so maybe the way I can try to be helpful answering this question is twofold. One is that especially kind of in the more technical fields, you're probably coming up against a lot of interviews if you're getting into the interview process that are technically based, whether they're whiteboard assessments or programming exercises or homework that you're asked to do. And if those are the times that you're getting stopped in the process, there are a lot of resources that will allow you to take practice tests or work with a professor and say, hey, I'm really not passing these technical assessments or these homework assignments. You know, identifying why and where you're not moving along in the process, I think will help you to at least understand where you can be doing better. And if it's a simple matter of your resume, you know, is not necessarily getting you into the interview process, then I think maybe the one thing you can do to start helping yourself there is really look at what the job descriptions you're applying for are asking for and seeing what am I not showing on my resume. You know, if it's telling me I've got to be a really good collaborator, then even if you don't have prior internship experience, you're going to want to make sure you're finding a place to talk about your ability to work with other people, your ability to collaborate. And so make sure that when you're submitting resumes, that you're understanding what the companies are asking for, even as far as repeating some of the language they're asking for back to them, and, you know, really making sure that you can walk away. I always tell students, you know, you have no control over it at a certain point, but as long as you can submit your resume and walk away saying, I told the company everything that's important, you know, about this role to me, I told them everything that I could about my experience as it relates to the job, then at that point, you can only do what you can do. But again, everyone is different, every company is different. And so the best advice I can give is don't beat yourself up if you're not finding success. I've been unemployed in my life for longer than I've been employed as an adult. And I got a lot of rejections, a lot of jobs that didn't reach back out to me. It'll just happen for you when it happens for you.
So I have a thought, and this is something that I've counseled people on before. Anything that you can do to gain transferable skills that factor into the types of jobs that you're looking for is something that you can think about dabbling in. And let's just say, like, maybe there's a nonprofit that needs somebody to create a database or, you know, put together some kind of a project. Nonprofits are great because they can't really pay a lot, if anything. And as long as you're doing something during that time off, whether it's going to school, you're maybe getting a Google certificate, you're showing forward momentum in some way, shape, or form. You know, I love to see projects and I love to see unique things that people are doing. And sometimes it doesn't even necessarily have to do with the actual job that you're applying for. But, you know, coming up with a creative way to present yourself in a different way, I think sometimes speaks to some really interesting dialogues and conversations and can pique the interest of hiring managers and recruiters in companies. So that's my 2 cents on that subject.
Amazing. I think I'm just going to add that basically for me, like when I see students struggling, they're struggling in like 2 different spots. And like Steve kind of talked about this. It's like either like not getting invited to any interviews or not being able to pass interviews. Like those are kind of the 2 spots. And I think there's a lot of not being able to pass the interviews. Like I'm not going to like focus on that because I think there are kind of some more obvious like resources, right? Like leak coding, practicing your interviews skills, like that sort of thing, being able to like tell your story. I think with like not getting invited to interviews, you know, there's all these different stages, right? Like Colleen's talking about like your resume, like, are you building skills that like makes your resume like appealing, right? Are you applying to enough jobs? Like, you know, I'm always really surprised, like when kids tell me like how many jobs, like when they tell me that they're struggling to get invited to interviews, like how few applications they actually put out. And the cool thing about tech jobs nowadays is it's just a resume submission, y'all. Like you don't even have to fucking write a cover letter anymore. Like you can just spray your resume, spray and pray, and like, you know, you gotta put your name in the hat, like wherever you can, right? So making sure you're putting in enough applications. Are you relying on your network and your contacts? Like I will tell you right now, my resume, fucking phenomenal. I've never gotten a job from just submitting my resume. Every single job that I've ever gotten has been from a friend or a professor or an old boss or like, you know, people, you know, like, yes, you should still apply. I'm not telling you to not apply because as a recruiter, I do hire a lot of just randos for my application pool that I don't have any connection with. But most people that I talk to, they get their jobs from referrals or from a connection that they made, right? And then of course, like, hey, are you hitting the ground super hard and showing up to those recruiting events? Like, are you going to all the career fairs? you guys are showing up to places like this. Great. Now you have Colleen, Kim, and Steve, who are your friends. Like, you know, where are you going to like meet those decision makers that have the power to move your application to the next stage of the process? Like, are you showing up to enough of those? And again, like they're all happening in the fall. Like you cannot, y'all, do not delay. Like literally, like at the UW, our career fair happens in the first week of school. The first week of school. And it's very jarring for students. And I totally empathize. It's like so much to have to like come back from summer, like fucking go to school again and like do all the recruiting shit. But like there are a lot of actual like, you know, recruiting can feel like such a like black curtain, black box. But there are some very practical steps actually that you can kind of review. I just like dropped in the chat like a link to a resume building guide that I wrote once upon a time at 3 a.m. because I was just like on a bender and like had a lot of things to say about building resumes for software engineering jobs. If you hit that up, I also have like links to like, I'll actually put another link here that's that I wrote that's kind of more like very practical tips on like kind of what I just gave you like a 1-minute spiel on, but like those different steps that you could kind of be reviewing to make sure that you are like, if you follow those steps, I'm not guaranteeing that you're going to get a job, but it's like, it's going to, you know, increase your chances. And if you feel like you're struggling, like it's just not happening for you, hopefully you can find something in there that can help you make a change or take a different approach. But also, I'm just gonna put this out here, like if you are not a rising senior, or if you do not have only one summer left before you graduate, you might not be prioritized. Now this person submitted their question anonymously, but like if you're a freshman or a sophomore, you're just less likely. Like if you're further out from graduation, you're just less likely to get an internship because companies are trying to hire folks full-time for their internship program. So like, just keep that in mind too, you know? Like there is a lot of timing that's involved with these kinds of programs. Even if you've met a million people that have internships their sophomore summer, like whatever, they're all flukes, all right?
Well, then another question is from a student. They're afraid they won't have the technical knowledge to complete their tasks. How can they prepare for the internship with this in mind? And it sounds like the student already has an internship.
I'm going to say very quickly, if we hired you, it's because we think you can do the job. Imposter syndrome is a very big thing and a very real thing, and I want to be sensitive to it, but at the same time, like let a recruiter and a team decide that. I don't want to put you in a bad spot. So if I didn't think you'd be successful, I wouldn't be hiring. So have some confidence. And if you feel like you are struggling, you know, work with your manager, your mentor, you know, let them know what you'd like to get better at. And that's what they're for as well. So try your best not to stress too much about that.
No notes on that answer.
You're not expected to know everything. Love yourself. Go in with what you got.
I think we're all in agreement here.
And then as we wrap up, what are your parting thoughts for our students here?
Okay, parting thoughts. Guys, I know that, you know, going into the internship, it feels like that company is there to evaluate you, but you fucking remember you're there to evaluate them too. And I'm sorry, UCSD YouTube that has to like hear me F-bomb, okay? But like, fuck it, it's fine. Like, honestly, like, I know that like, you know, this whole shitty school system is set up to evaluate you and to like assign some self-worth based off of a GPA or markers of success or like whatever. And like, it's really easy to like bring that energy into your internship. But like, y'all, like, remember, like, you have an opinion too. You have preferences too. Like, you have agency in like what your life looks like after college, and like picking the place that you're going to work is going to be kind of a big part of it. You can always make changes. I'm not saying it's like the biggest decision of your life, but like, that's the thing is it's your decision. You get to decide. And like, you know, just keep that in mind. Like, you should also be evaluating and deciding, hey, like, is this a place that I want to be? Is this a place that like I think treats me well? And, you know, obviously at the end of the day, we all have to make that bread. You got to do what you got to do to survive in this world. But like, remember, like, you have agency, you have a choice. It's your decision. and make sure that you're not so lost in the sauce of like trying to get this return offer that like you forget to evaluate like what's important to you and like what like you want out of this. So mic drop, Kim out.
I think that was so well said. It's a two-way street. Don't forget what Kim said.
Yeah, I don't know if I can top that. The only thing I will add as an addendum to that as well is every day is the most important day of your life, and especially when you're in school, it feels like, you know, every moment is going to determine everything. My degree is in writing for movies and TV, and I'm talking to you all today about, you know, university recruiting. So clearly, what I set out to do when I was your ages did not end up working out for me. And that's okay. You know, there's going to be a lot of things that are coming your way in the next many years that are going to change a lot of the things about your life that you can't even see yet. So it's I know it can be very scary and stressful right now, but you're all going to be fine. You're all going to figure it out. You're all going to get opportunities. So yes, be choosy, make sure you're advocating for yourself, but also try to put as little pressure on yourself as possible, because I'm sure life's already putting a lot of pressure on y'all as it is.
Thank you so much for all the advice that y'all gave. I know we have one last question here. Are companies still looking for interns that have already completed undergrad, or should you be looking for a full-time job at this point? Now, Steve, you could answer this.
That's going to vary company to company. And indeed, we don't offer internships for folks who have graduated. I find that to be the more common occurrence in software engineering, but some companies will. So I think it's just really asking that question or keeping an eye on what the requirements for those positions are as you see them posted.
Great, thank you. And that does make sense. I think generally it just depends on the company. Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. You all gave such amazing advice. As a reminder, this presentation was recorded, so you all can go back and hear everyone's great advice on our YouTube channel. As we wrap up, feel free to just drop a thank you in the chat. And thank you everyone for joining. And I hope you all have a good upcoming Memorial Day weekend. Good upcoming Memorial Day weekend.
Thanks, Alejandra. Colleen, Steve, it was really fun meeting you guys.
Likewise.
Both of you as well. Thanks for putting this together, and thanks for attending, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.